The valley had always been more than just a piece of land to Ethan Cole. It was a memory carved into mountains, a place where the air smelled like pine needles and rain, where his grandfather taught him how to fish in the silver stream that cut through the hills like a mirror of the sky. 15 years had passed since he last stood there. The world had changed. New highways, new developments, new people claiming to belong where they never truly did. But as his old pickup rolled along the gravel path that led down into Clearwater Valley, it felt as though time had stopped waiting for him. The moment he saw the cabin, half swallowed by wild grass and the creeping shadow of the forest, Ethan smiled. Weathered, broken, but still standing, just like the old man who built it. He parked, stepped out, and took a deep breath. The mountains echoed with silence, and the faint murmur of the stream below reminded him he was home. What Ethan didn't know was that in his absence, someone else had been laying claim to his peace. The following morning, the first sign of trouble arrived, wrapped in authority and arrogance. A white SUV pulled up to the dirt road like it didn't belong there, because it didn't. The chrome HOA emblem on the side glinted under the sun. From the driver's seat stepped Karen Whitmore, a woman who dressed like she was headed for a board meeting, not the mountains. Her short blonde hair was styled to perfection. Her sunglasses reflected everything but emotion, and the clipboard in her hand looked more like a weapon than a document. "Excuse me," she called out, stepping toward the porch where Ethan was repainting the railing. "Are you the contractor here?" Ethan paused, brush midair. "No, ma'am. I'm the owner." Karen lowered her sunglasses. "Owner?" She looked around with exaggerated disbelief. "That's not possible. This area falls under the jurisdiction of the Clearwater Estates HOA. You can't just move in, here without board approval." He laughed softly, thinking it was a misunderstanding. "I think you've got your lines crossed. My family's owned this property for generations. This cabin's older than your subdivision." Karen's lips pressed into a thin smile. "Be that as it may, our community extends across the valley floor. All residents are required to comply with HOA standards. No unapproved structures, no construction noise after 6 p.m., and absolutely no open fires." Ethan leaned on the railing, amused. "You do realize this cabin's been here since before your HOA existed, right?" Karen's tone sharpened. "That doesn't matter. If you're within our boundaries, you follow our rules. I'll need your deed and building permits." "Sure," Ethan said, wiping his hands. "I'll show you the deed. But I think you'll be surprised." Karen's jaw tightened. She took a picture of the cabin, the pickup, even the mailbox, as if gathering evidence. "I'll be back with a notice," she said finally, marching back to her SUV. Ethan watched her leave, the sound of tires crunching gravel fading into the trees. The mountains around him stood silent, indifferent to her arrogance, but something inside him stirred. He had come here for peace, not war. Yet somehow he knew peace wasn't what this valley had in mind. By the end of the week, the war had begun. A bright yellow notice fluttered on his cabin door one morning. "Unauthorized occupancy, vacate immediately or face fines." Ethan tore it down, his patience thinning. But the absurdity didn't stop there. Each day brought something new. HOA officers parked by the trail taking photos, warning letters stuffed under his windshield wipers, even a demand for membership dues for a community he never joined. That night, he called his old friend, Sophie, a real estate lawyer from Denver. "Sophie, you're not going to believe this," he said, frustration in his voice. "Some HOA president thinks she owns my grandfather's valley. They've been harassing me all week." Sophie chuckled. "HOAs are always power-hungry, but harassing a landowner? That's bold. You still have your family's property file, right?" "Yeah, somewhere in the cabin attic. I'll dig it out tomorrow." "Do that," she said. "And Ethan, keep everything documented. Photos, letters, timestamps. If this goes legal, we'll bury them in paperwork." Ethan smiled faintly. "You always knew how to make trouble sound comforting." "Only when the other side deserves it," she replied. The next morning, Ethan climbed into the attic. Dust floated through the beams of sunlight like golden snow. He found the old trunk, his grandfather's, covered in cobwebs and memories. Inside were tools, a faded fishing hat, and at the very bottom, a bundle of documents wrapped in wax paper. He unrolled one yellowed map and froze. The ink was faded but clear enough to read. Cole family estate, property line, entire Clearwater Valley basin. Ethan blinked. The line didn't just circle the cabin. It ran across the stream through the forest and stretched all the way to the edge of the HOA's gated community, including Karen's street. He laughed under his breath. "You've got to be kidding me!" The sound of a car engine outside broke the silence. He glanced through the window. 2 police cruisers and a familiar white SUV. Karen was back. This time she brought backup. Ethan stepped outside as she marched up the driveway, flanked by 2 deputies. "Mr. Cole," she began, voice cold, "you are in violation of multiple community codes. You were warned to vacate and you've ignored every notice. Sheriff Daniels here is going to assist in removing you from this property until we can verify ownership." Ethan stared at her, stunned. "You called the cops on me? For living in my own cabin?" "Technically," she said with a smirk, "it's our community property now." Sheriff Daniels, a broad man in his 50s with a tired look in his eyes, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I don't know what's going on here, but if you have proof of ownership, now's the time to show it." Ethan nodded slowly, walked back inside, and returned with the yellow deed in hand. "This is my grandfather's original title. Filed and notarized. You might want to read the boundaries carefully." Karen snatched it. Glancing at the first line, her smug expression fading as her eyes scanned the map. "This can't be right," she muttered. This includes half our development." Ethan folded his arms. "Actually, it includes all of it." Sheriff Daniels leaned over her shoulder, reading the signature. "Filed in 1962, renewed in 85. Huh. That's older than the HOA by about 40 years. Karen's face turned pale. "That doesn't make sense." "The county approved our development plan." "On leased land," Ethan interrupted. "Temporary development rights. My grandfather never sold it." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "Karen, I think we need to verify this before taking any action." Karen's voice trembled with frustration. "No, he's bluffing. This man is squatting on HOA land, and Ethan took back the paper, calm but unyielding. "If you're so sure, go ahead. File your complaint. But the next time you show up here without permission, I'll consider it trespassing on my property." Karen's jaw dropped. "You can't talk to me like that." "I just did." For a long moment, nobody moved. The mountains echoed with the sound of the stream. Then Sheriff Daniels cleared his throat. "Karen, let's go." "We'll check the county records. Mr. Cole, sit tight until we sort this out." As the convoy rolled away, Ethan stood at the porch, staring after them. A strange mix of anger and satisfaction swirling inside him. He'd come for solitude, but the valley had given him a challenge instead. He turned back toward the cabin. The wind brushed through the trees, carrying the faint whisper of his grandfather's words, ones he hadn't thought about in years. "Son, never let anyone tell you what's yours isn't worth fighting for." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Guess we're about to find out how much it's worth." That night, the valley wasn't quiet anymore. He could see headlights on the ridge, HOA trucks, patrolling. Emails started flooding his inbox with HOA violations, fines, and threats of legal action. And then came the final straw, a message on his gate spray-painted in red. "Pack up, get out now." Ethan stared at it in the pale moonlight, fury burning beneath his calm exterior. This wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about control, and he wasn't going to bow to anyone's. He dialed Sophie again, voice steady but cold. "Sophie, it's worse than we thought. They're harassing me now, but I found the documents, all of them. The whole valley belongs to the Cole family, and I can prove it." Sophie's voice hardened. "Then it's time to end this. Tomorrow we go to the county registrar. Let's see how Karen likes it when she finds out she's been living on your land." Ethan looked out at the moonlit mountains, his valley, his legacy, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. "Resolve. This time," he whispered. "They'll remember who really owns Clearwater Valley." And as dawn began to break across the peaks, painting the sky in gold, Ethan knew the real storm hadn't even started yet. The morning sun rose over Clearwater Valley like a silent witness. Golden light spilled across the pines, glinting off the dew-soaked grass. But the beauty felt hollow now, fragile. The serenity that had once greeted Ethan Cole each morning was replaced by tension that crackled in the air like static before a storm. He stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching a convoy of black SUVs crawl up the gravel path. HOA vehicles. Again, only this time they weren't alone. Behind them came a white pickup with a county seal on the door. The property assessor's office. Ethan sighed. Guess the circus is back in town. The door creaked open behind him. Sophie stepped out, hair tied back, sunglasses hiding her sharp eyes. She'd driven up from Denver the night before, armed with folders, copies, and legal firepower. They sent the county office? She asked, sipping her coffee. That's desperate. They're trying to prove something that isn't theirs, Ethan smirked. Let's make sure they remember that. The cars came to a halt, kicking up a cloud of dust that glowed in the morning light. Karen Whitmore was the first to step out, perfectly dressed. As if she were heading to a courtroom she thought she'd already won. Her voice carried across the valley. Mr. Cole, I hope you understand this is your last chance to leave before legal action proceeds. Sophie walked forward before Ethan could answer. Actually, Ms. Whitmore, you're standing on my client's land. So unless you've suddenly acquired a court order, I suggest you step back before you're the one facing legal action. Karen blinked, startled. And you are? Sophie Reyes, real estate attorney, representing Mr. Cole and the Cole estate, which, as it turns out, includes this valley and every square foot of your community. Karen laughed, that forced, brittle kind of laugh that hides panic. You can't be serious. Our HOA has county-recognized boundaries. We have jurisdiction over this entire development. Sophie smiled thinly. Your HOA can have as many rules as it wants, just not on someone else's property. We've already filed a boundary claim with the county clerk. The county assessor, an older man with a neutral face, stepped forward. Ma'am, we'll verify ownership records. That's why we're here. Karen's confidence cracked. You'll see. He's lying. He forged those documents. Ethan finally spoke, his tone calm and cutting. Then by all means, let's check. I have the original deed, survey maps, and notarized extensions. You'll find every signature from 1962 to 1985. And not one mention of your HOA. Karen's lips trembled. That can't be. We purchased through Clearwater Development. The assessor raised his brow. Then they must have leased, not bought. Karen's face went white. Leased? That's impossible. Sophie crossed her arms. I'm afraid not. Clearwater Development only had a lease-to-build agreement on this land. When Ethan's grandfather passed, the lease expired. Everything reverted to the Cole estate. Ethan stepped forward, voice steady. So Karen, technically your HOA has been operating and building on private property. My family's property. For a moment, nobody spoke. The mountains seemed to listen. Even the stream below fell silent, its babble fading into stillness. Then Karen's voice broke through, thin and desperate. No, this isn't happening. We've invested millions. The homes, the roads, all on my grandfather's land, Ethan interrupted. And you've been trespassing for years. The assessor cleared his throat, uncomfortable. We'll have to verify this with the county registrar, but if what he's saying checks out, Ms. Whitmore, this could be a serious issue. Karen turned to her board members, her perfect composure gone. You can't let him do this! Stop him! But they looked away, silent, nervous. The queen had lost her crown, and they weren't going down with her. Later that day, Ethan and Sophie drove to the county courthouse in Durango. The clerk, an older woman with glasses perched low on her nose, pulled up the property archives. It took only 10 minutes for the truth to appear on screen. A line of legal text that changed everything. Owner of record, Cole Family Trust. Established, 1962. Extended ownership, 1985, 2085. Current beneficiary, Ethan Cole. Sophie leaned back, satisfied. There it is, ironclad. You don't just own the cabin, Ethan. You own everything from the ridge to the lake, including the land beneath their HOA offices. Ethan stared at the screen in stunned silence. His grandfather had always told him the valley was their legacy, but he'd never imagined it was this vast. He took a slow breath. So what happens now? Sophie smiled. Now? We play it smart. We don't evict. We don't threaten. We make them sweat, legally. Let's send a cease and desist notice. They'll either back down quietly or drag this into court, where they'll lose publicly. Ethan nodded. Let's make it official. A week later, the HOA's community meeting looked more like a courtroom than a neighborhood gathering. Every homeowner in Clearwater Estates had heard the rumors. The man in the valley wasn't some squatter. He was the landowner, the real one. Karen sat at the head of the table, face pale but posture rigid. She was still pretending to be in control. Ethan and Sophie entered quietly. Conversations died. Eyes followed them. Karen slammed her gavel on the table. This meeting is private. You can't just walk in. Sophie placed a letter in front of her. Court-approved notice. Consider this your official warning. All HOA operations, maintenance, and enforcement must cease immediately pending land ownership confirmation. Karen snatched it. You have no authority. Ethan cut her off. Actually, I do. And so does the court. I could have gone straight for a lawsuit. But I didn't. I'm giving you time to adjust. Karen, to accept that your power doesn't reach past your front porch. Gasps filled the room. Some homeowners nodded subtly. Others whispered behind their hands. A man from the back stood. Is it true? He owns the whole valley? Sophie turned to him. Every legal record confirms it. The HOA built on his leased land. Technically, every homeowner here is a tenant of the Cole estate. Karen's hand shook as she read the notice. This is outrageous. We've been here for 20 years. Ethan's voice softened. And you can stay. I'm not here to evict anyone, but the harassment stops. The threats stop. The fake fines stop. From now on, I decide what happens in this valley, not you. Her eyes filled with fury. You can't take my community away from me. Ethan looked at her evenly. It was never yours to begin with. Days turned into weeks, and the news spread like wildfire. Local newspapers picked up the story. Man reclaims an entire HOA valley after decades. Residents stunned. TV crews showed up. Reporters camped by the gates of Clearwater Estates, eager for footage of the HOA president who lost an entire valley. Karen stopped showing up to meetings. Her allies abandoned her. Her reputation crumbled overnight, but Ethan didn't gloat. He stayed quiet, rebuilding his cabin, planting trees where developers had cut them down. One evening, Sheriff Daniels drove up the valley road again. No police lights this time. He stepped out with a small smile. Thought I'd come see how the king of Clearwater Valley's doing. Ethan chuckled. Still feels strange hearing it out loud. The sheriff nodded toward the mountains. Heard the county finally updated the maps. Whole place is officially yours again. Yeah, Ethan said softly. Grandpa would have liked that. The sheriff studied him for a moment. You could have run them all out, you know. Charged rent, even sued for damages. I know, Ethan said, gazing at the distant rooftops of the HOA homes. But this valley was meant for peace, not payback. I'll protect it, not profit from it. The sheriff nodded. That's rare these days. Folks will remember that. A few nights later, as the valley lay quiet under the moonlight, Ethan heard footsteps crunching gravel outside his cabin. He opened the door, and there she was. Karen Whitmore. Her usual confidence was gone. No sunglasses, no clipboard, just a woman standing in the cold, her voice small. I came to apologize, she said. I didn't know. I thought you were trying to take what we built. Ethan sighed. You built it on someone else's foundation. Karen, you didn't have to turn it into a war. Tears welled in her eyes. I just wanted order. I thought rules would keep everything perfect. But I went too far. He nodded slowly. We all want control over something we love. But sometimes the best way to protect it is to let it breathe. She looked around, at the stream glimmering in the moonlight, the trees whispering softly in the wind. It's beautiful here, she murmured. I guess I never really saw it until now. Ethan half smiled. That's because you were too busy trying to own it. Karen looked down. What will you do with the HOA? Dissolve it, he said. Replace it with something better, a land trust. No more rules, just preservation. She nodded quietly, then turned to leave. Good luck, Mr. Cole. Take care, Karen, he replied. And for what it's worth, I hope you find your peace too. Months passed. The HOA dissolved. The county officially transferred management of the entire Clearwater Valley to the Cole Conservation Trust founded by Ethan himself. No more fines. No more power trips. Just land. Free, protected, alive. Birds returned to the streams. Hikers wandered the trails again. The old cabin, once forgotten, became a symbol of resilience. Ethan would sit on his porch at sunset, watching the valley glow in amber light, feeling the same peace his grandfather once did. Sophie visited often. "You did it," she told him one evening, smiling. "You didn't just win the land back, you gave it a future." Ethan smiled faintly. "It was never about winning, Sophie. It was about reminding them, and myself, that some things can't be bought or bullied into submission." She looked toward the horizon, where the last light kissed the peaks. "Clearwater Valley's finally free." Ethan took a slow breath. The sound of the stream drifted through the air, calm and endless. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's home again." And as night fell, the valley whispered through the pines, carrying a promise, one that would last generations.